Stop scrolling for just a second, right? Look down at your hands. What if I told you that right now, just beneath your skin, an active microscopic war zone is raging? Every single second, a completely sophisticated internal army is battling invisible assassins, executing highly calculated suicide missions and deploying precision weaponry just to keep you alive. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to break down the incredible biology of how your body defends itself and how modern science is actually weaponizing these natural defenses to cure disease. Okay, let's dive into this.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. We're looking at 1. The microscopic war zone. 2. The innate immunity rapid response. 3. Adaptive immunity and lymphocytes. 4. Antibodies and immune memory. And 5. Engineering the immune system.
Okay, let's jump right into part 1, the microscopic war zone.
Before we even get to the foreign invaders, we kind of have to talk about the extreme lengths your own cells go to just to maintain order on the home front. Look at this number, 60 billion. That is absolutely staggering. Every single day, over 60 billion cells in your body execute this highly controlled, genetically programmed self-destruct sequence, and it's absolutely crucial. Because if they fail to commit this cellular suicide, well, you get cancer. But if they do it too fast, you get neurodegenerative diseases. It's basically altruistic suicide, a really critical form of biological housekeeping called apoptosis, and it keeps you alive by making sure mutated or damaged cells don't go rogue.
Now, there's a huge difference between a controlled cell death and a violent one. Apoptosis, like we just said, is clean. The cell neatly shrinks down into these little packages that are silently cleaned up by the body. But necrosis? Oh man, that is messy. That's unprogrammed, traumatic cell death caused by something like a severe infection or oxygen starvation. The cell literally swells up and bursts open, spilling acidic enzymes and these things called DAMPs, damage-associated molecular patterns. It's an explosion that triggers severe, red, painful inflammation in the surrounding tissue. It's basically a massive biological alarm bell.
So what actually sets off that alarm? A lot of times, it's a virus. Now, viruses are obligate intracellular parasites, meaning they don't even have their own biological machinery to reproduce. They have to hijack ours. To pull this off, they execute a highly precise 5-step invasion plan. First, they dock onto specific receptors on our cells, kind of like a key sliding into a lock. Then they enter and uncode, literally injecting their genetic code. Step 3 is biosynthesis, where they hijack our own cellular factories to just pump out viral proteins. Step 4 is assembly, putting all those new viruses together. And finally, release. They burst out to infect other cells, which, you guessed it, often causes that messy necrotic death we just talked about.
Moving on to part 2, innate immunity and that rapid response.
Okay, so when a pathogen actually breaches our defenses and starts causing damage, our body immediately deploys its rapid, non-specific frontline troops. Think of this as the dossier of your innate defense force, a totally sophisticated internal army of specialized white blood cells. First on the scene, the neutrophils. These are your rapid response shock troops. Then you've got macrophages. That literally translates to big eaters, and they act like giant tanks just devouring bacterial debris. Next up are the dendritic cells, acting as the intelligence scouts of the immune system. And finally, natural killer, or NK cells. These guys are specialized snipers. They go around inspecting your body's cells for missing MHC Class I markers, which is essentially checking for cellular ID badges. If they find a cell that lost its ID because of a virus or cancer, they destroy it immediately.
The really wild part here is just how aggressively these cells fight, and honestly, nothing showcases this quite like the neutrophils. When things get really desperate, neutrophils execute this incredibly visceral, action-packed tactic. They literally decondense their own nuclear DNA and fire it out of themselves like a biological spiderweb. These are called nets, or neutrophil extracellular traps. This web is heavily loaded with toxic antimicrobial enzymes that physically trap and destroy invading pathogens. It's literally a microscopic kamikaze mission that saves your life.
Which brings us to Section 3. Adaptive immunity and lymphocytes.
But you know, what happens when those rapid response forces get completely overwhelmed? Well, we switch over to the slower but highly specific memory response of your immune system. And to understand this adaptive immune system, you really just need to understand one word: antigen. An antigen is a specific molecular shape or marker from a pathogen. Remember those dendritic intelligence scout cells we talked about? When they devour an invader, they actually chop it up and travel all the way to your lymph nodes to present these specific antigen pieces to your adaptive immune system. They're essentially showing the generals exactly what the enemy looks like. And those generals? Those are your T cells, which come in two main types. First, you've got the helper T cells, or CD4+ cells. They are the general commanders. They inspect the antigens and orchestrate the entire immune response. On the flip side, you have the cytotoxic T cells, or CD8+ cells. These are your precision snipers that hunt down infected cells and fire lethal proteins called perforants to just punch holes right in them. Understanding this division is absolutely vital. For instance, the HIV virus specifically targets and destroys those CD4+ general commanders. Without the commanders to orchestrate the battle, the whole immune response collapses. And that's the devastating reality of how HIV causes AIDS.
Working right alongside those T cells are the B cells. When a B cell gets activated by the general commanders, it transforms into a plasma cell. And the sheer scale of this response is just mind-blowing. A single activated plasma cell can pump out up to 2,000 antibody proteins into your bloodstream every single second. 2,000 every second!
All right, part 4. Antibodies and immune memory.
Let's zoom in on these weapons that the B cells are mass-producing and how they protect us long after the battle is over. Antibodies are these Y-shaped proteins that snap perfectly onto the complementary shapes of an invading virus to neutralize it. But wait, how can your body produce a unique antibody for a virus it has never even seen before? It happens through this process called VDJ recombination. Think of it kind of like mixing and matching genetic Lego bricks. Developing B cells physically cut, shuffle, and recombine distinct genetic segments in their own DNA. This microscopic genetic shuffling lets your body generate over 100 billion unique antibody binding shapes from just a tiny cluster of genes. Literally, you have an antibody shape ready for almost any threat on Earth.
Once your body actually figures out which of those 100 billion antibodies works against the invader, it remembers. Let's look at the timeline. On day 0, you get infected. It takes about 10 days for your body to build a modest primary antibody response. And yeah, you definitely feel sick during this time. But a subset of those immune cells become long-lived memory cells. Fast forward. If you get exposed to that exact same pathogen, say 5 years later, the secondary response is instantaneous. Within 24 hours, a massive flood of high-affinity antibodies absolutely destroy the virus before you even show a single symptom.
And this incredible memory response? It builds the entire foundation for one of humanity's greatest medical achievements, vaccines. All vaccines essentially work by tricking your adaptive immune system into generating those long-lasting memory cells without you ever having to suffer through the actual dangerous disease. We do this across 4 master platforms: live attenuated, inactivated, viral vector, and the incredible new mRNA vaccines, which actually deliver temporary genetic instructions directly to your cells to teach them exactly what the enemy looks like.
Finally, Section 5. Engineering the immune system.
We are now living in an era where biotechnology actually lets us actively weaponize these incredible cellular mechanisms to cure the incurable. I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, but it is happening right now in hospitals around the world. It's called CAR T-cell therapy. Doctors actually extract a cancer patient's own immune T cells. Then, in a laboratory, they use a disarmed viral vector to genetically reprogram these cells, giving them synthetic chimeric antigen receptors that are specifically designed to target the patient's exact cancer markers. They then reinfuse these upgraded, supercharged cells back into the patient, where they hunt down and completely obliterate leukemia. I really want to dwell on this concept for just a second. We are no longer just injecting static chemicals into the body and crossing our fingers. We are creating living medicine. Dynamic, intelligent, living cells that have been specifically engineered to hunt down threats. It's a complete paradigm shift in how we view healthcare and human biology. Which leaves us with a truly awe-inspiring thought to wrap up this explainer. The immune system is already the most sophisticated defense network on the planet. But if we can now engineer our own immune cells into living medicine to cure cancer today, what other impossible diseases will we conquer tomorrow? The microscopic war within us is no longer just a battle for survival. It's literally become the ultimate frontier of medical technology. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. And as always, keep exploring the incredible science all around us.